We're continuing our series of State of the Program addresses, talking with folks from around the state who know these programs as well as anybody. Let's talk a little bit about one of the hottest teams in the state, the UTSA Roadrunners. A lot to talk about with Jeff Traylor's squad. And here to talk about it, to give the State of the Program address, is Javi Cardenas. Javi Cardenas is with birdsup.com, part of the Rivals Network. Javi, how are you?
Fantastic. Thanks for having me on.
Hey, absolutely. Appreciate your time. I'll start with, I think, a purposefully vague question. There's a lot of talk, there's a lot of buzz around UTSA right now. I know we're excited about them. I know there's a lot of folks around the nation who are paying attention to what's going on at UTSA. As a guy who follows this program as closely as anybody, what would you say is the state of the program right now with the Roadrunners?
I definitely think, optimism, the optimism is there from fans, from people around the program. Just last year, how well everything went, they obviously exceeded expectations. They just seem to be in a very, positive track heading into this year. They return what is essentially their entire team. I don't think they had any major contributors really leave the program from last year, coupled with, a couple transfers they have coming in, and then maybe some that will be joining in the summer. It looks pretty good for them. Whether that translates, into the season is just to be seen. But there's definitely some optimism that they're going to, be one of the better teams in Conference USA.
I want to ask you about Jeff Traylor. This is a guy that we've known from the high school ranks. Of course, was an assistant at Arkansas and at Texas before he lands his first collegiate head coaching job at UTSA. Can you kind of take us back to when he was hired, what the vibe was around UTSA hiring Jeff Traylor, and maybe if there is a contrast it with what the feeling is now around what Coach Traylor's got cooking down there?
There was definitely some caution, right? Because it was what you heard from a lot of fans we're hiring another running backs coach, right? As was Frank Wilson when he got hired from LSU. Obviously, it's a little different, right? Jeff Traylor had, like you mentioned, all those Texas connections, a history of winning at the high school level, and had been around Texas, the programs around the country a little bit more. But so with that being said, he made a great first impression with his press conference. That was fantastic. Just the way he communicated with the fans, with the people around the program. And as the season kind of got going, man, he just, things started turning. They started being competitive. They started winning, even in games that they lost. The team was competitive, and that's what a big thing that the program did not have in the last few years of the Wilson era was the team was just not competitive. And even during their struggles during the season, they were still in every single game, maybe a few possessions away. And so, things, started up kind of cautiously optimistic, and then by the end, I think he had everybody bought into his vision of the program.
Talking with Javi Cardenas at birdsup.com, a little bit about UTSA here on Texas Football Today. Get involved in the conversation, hashtag TF Today. All right, let's talk about this offense. And it strikes me that, we are pretty big fans of Sincere McCormick. I think that's a pretty easy fan club to join, what he was able to do. Frank Harris at the quarterback spot, let's say up and down. It strikes me that this offense could be ready for prime time if they can settle in on a quarterback and that quarterback can step up. What is the feeling for you right now around this UTSA offense?
Right. So I think you're spot on when you say kind of the offense does revolve about Sincere McCormick with good reason. Obviously, he's safe to say one of the better running backs in the country right now. But there is a little bit of question mark at the quarterback position. Frank Harris, unfortunately, has a history with injuries that always gives you, some pause, right? Behind him is a guy like Josh Adkins, who played a little bit last year, but he was also injured. And they just had, a lot of issues with injuries last year, really, at the quarterback spot. But if Frank Harris can stay healthy, I think this team can achieve its goals. It's just that big question, right? Can this quarterback group stay healthy? They have capable guys behind them in Atkins, Narcisse, Lowell Narcisse, and some others behind them. And I think if Frank Harris can stay healthy, this offense can achieve what they want to do.
On the other side of the ball, the defense, this is an interesting kind of situation where You've got some playmakers that I think are back that are kind of sturdy. I think of guys like Jalen Haynes at the nose guard position. They've got another number of other players that are kind of solid columns and foundational pieces, and they're going to kind of filter in some of the new guys. You go on along with basically promoting Rod Wright and Jess Lepp to be co-defensive coordinators. This was a defense that I think was overall mostly solid last year. What is the feeling? What is the vibe around the defense for UTSA right now?
Something that Traylor kind of harped on all spring was the depth at their defense, right? He kind of mentioned they had some things to shore up on offense, depth-wise, but he always kept saying that he felt very good about his depth at defense, and it kind of shows. They did bring back everybody, literally, from that defense from last year. Guys like Jalen Haynes, Lorenzo Dantzler at the defensive line spot, Ligon and Harmonson at linebacker, and, of course, Wisdom at safety, along with a couple cornerbacks. Everybody's coming back, so that depth is there. They've added a lot more depth also at linebacker with a couple Kansas transfers at linebacker and in a couple other spots, and they're looking to bring on more depth in the defensive line in the summer. So I think this unit, like you said, it didn't stand out on paper, but they were pretty solid all year long. They didn't really let out huge amounts of points and yards. They weren't one of the best in the conference by any means, and their sack numbers weren't there really, but they were solid. So what they're hoping is for this defense to take that next step with the continuity of the players coming back, plus some familiar faces at the coordinator spots with Rod Wright and Lepp. So there's definitely some optimism there as well, just of everybody that's coming back and the coaches that are there as well.
I know you're also a guy there at birdsup.com. You do a great job covering the recruiting side for UTSA. We knew that Jeff Traylor, as we've mentioned, with the great connections he has with high school coaches and the deep ties he has to the state of Texas, was going to make his impact felt. I think it's safe to say they've done that. This is the top. He hauls in the top class in Conference USA in 2021. And so, can you, as far as UTSA fans are concerned, when they look at the future of the program and they see the recruits coming in, is there like a tangible excitement around what UTSA is able to do right now on the recruiting trail?
Oh yeah, and you just feel it talking to other coaches, players around the city, and just in general. It's just there's an excitement from the in a recruiting standpoint, from the fans and from the players themselves. It does feel a little bit different. They have a new facility that's going to open up at the end of the month. That's going to be, believe it or not, UTSA's first, not even football, but athletic specific building. So that's going to be huge for them. That opens up at the end of the month. So they're really playing with that as well, kind of hyping it up. And you can feel it, like you said, like I said, around the city, but then talking to coaches around the state as well. Their players are interested in UTSA, and just by talking to a couple people, UTSA can be a little selective this time around. Whereas before it was kind of like, hey, let's go out recruiting as this middle of the road G5 team, right, in Texas. Now they can be a little bit more picky with the resume from last year heading into this year with the new facility coming up with Jeff Traylor. Obviously, the hype around him is pretty big right now, as you guys know. So everything's kind of culminating into a little bit of a storm for him. So it's going to be very interesting in the recruiting front how they're going to play into that, right? They're going to start hosting recruits as early as tomorrow on some big names around the city. So I'm going to be very interested to see how that plays out by in December and February, because they have been told they are going to be a little bit pickier because of the super senior thing and because the class has to be a little bit smaller to account for the numbers. So they're going to have to. It's going to have to be a little bit smaller, but it's going to be interesting to see how he uses the hype around the program to boost that for him.
And finally, I'm going to put you on the spot here. And looking at the 2021 class, is there? Do you want to go on record? Is there one guy in this class that you're really excited about and you think could be that breakout star that we're that people are like, oh, that was actually the gem of the class when you look at the 2021 class that UTSA hauled in?
Man, that's a tough one. Like you said, they got some great players to come in last year. I think Eddie Lee Marburger, of course, he might not get to play obviously because of the depth in front of him. He's a name to look out for. But a guy like a guy like Ron Tatum, if
Mm-hmm.
he's able to join the team in the summer like he's expected to, I think he can really solidify that defensive line and kind of make a three-headed monster there with Haynes and Dantzler, and to maybe taking that defensive line from being okay in the conference to maybe taking that next step and being one of the better defensive lines in the conference. So I think a guy like Ron Tatum can definitely make a big impact for this team.
He's Javi Cardenas. You can find his fine work at birdsup.com. And, of course, follow him on Twitter at RivalsJavi. Javi, appreciate your time, my friend. Thanks very much.
Thanks, guys.
There he goes. Javi Cardenas of birdsup.com. Join us to give the state of the program address there at UTSA.